Hi, my name is Nisar Mirza. This is my MSc Interior Architecture thesis with my thesis advisor Gülnur. The thesis title is Analysis of Post-Disaster Emergency Housing Projects in terms of interior space quality parameters. The aim of the thesis is to identify interior space quality parameters and discuss their role in addressing the critical human needs. In this thesis, the taxonomy of interior space quality parameters are studied from literature sources and composed. These parameters address physical, psychological, and social human needs. The study presents a general assessment of case studies of post-disaster emergency housing projects according to space quality parameters. And the aim is to identify and indicate key shortcomings, the identified deficiencies in conventional approach about such projects could be rectified by rethinking the interior space with healing characteristics. Interior space quality has the potential to recover the individual's body and soul. So, generally, the overall thesis supports the argument of interior design as significant contributor to post-disaster rehabilitation. The first part of the thesis deals with interior space quality parameters from the literature sources, including book chapters, articles, research papers, publications, and web pages. Second part of the thesis involves the assessment of different case studies sourced from competitions, private firms, and mass-produced products. The visual and contextual data is obtained directly from the authors or their websites. And the third part of the thesis covers the discussions on shortcomings and drawn conclusions based on results to help in improving future approach and to comment on the present scenario. The notable literature that is reviewed on the topics like space quality parameters, critical human needs, psychological and aesthetic performance criteria for assessing space quality, interior's role in post-disaster, temporary or transitional housing for displaced persons, well-being through interiors. So all of these topics are relevant with this thesis topic. So various literature sources have shown some information and helped to link the different topics. To give a general background, this is the number of the displaced people presently. 70.8 million people, according to UNHCR, are now internally or externally displaced people. That is a pretty huge number, so we can have a fair idea about the potential of the problem. Generally, the traditional approach of dealing with post disaster situations is to direct the reconstruction and rehabilitation efforts to a pre disaster state, that is also termed as restorative recovery. In this figure, David Laleman explains and emphasizes on build back better, and he termed it as reformative recovery. So after a disaster, there is an opportunity to create and rebuild better infrastructure, not only in physical terms but also emphasize quality of space as well. So in the future, the same magnitude disaster would have less consequences on human lives. These are the general types of post-disaster housing. Number one is emergency sheltering, that is usable for first few weeks after emergency. The second is transitional housing. It could be designed for up to 10 years for the usual unexpected prolonged stay. And the third is semi-permanent housing. It is the version of transitional housing that is capable of being permanent with land ownership. The fourth one is permanent housing. It is public welfare housing for displaced people, usually with incremental building tendency. These are various examples of these housing types. These space quality parameters as variables determine the quality of a space, and in this study they are categorized into these components with the major references from these two sources mentioned. And number one is a technical component that deals with health, safety, and security. Number two is the functional component, deals in workflow performance. The third component is aesthetical, which is about psychological and aesthetic performance. The fourth one is social component that deals with interactions with and within the space. The fifth one is spatial component, which is about form, features, and theme. All of these parameters within these components are also discussed and studied in detail. The parameters within the technical component are lighting, thermal comfort, air quality, and noise control. And all of these parameters are mentioned here with respect to their keywords and definitions and their impact on well-being and their references from the literature sources and their first sources mentioned also. So as the lighting can have impact on human well-being by affecting wayfinding, user friendliness. Thermal comfort also has its effects on metabolism. It can cause strain on metabolism. It can cause cognitive fatigue, frustration, and helplessness. The air quality can impact on behavioral aggression, and it can have negative effects, and also it is related with trauma. Noise control can have elevated psychological distress, and it can cause increased heart rate and sleeplessness. The parameters within the functional component are space planning, accessibility, wayfinding, furniture layout, and safety. Space planning could have impact on well-being, like the ability to regulate social interaction and permeability, and the visual and acoustical boundaries and barriers, and capabilities to control them. And accessibility can have impact on well-being, like mobility, especially in physically disadvantaged people who are at greater risk of being neglected. Wayfinding can have physical impact and mental impact on well-being, like helplessness, discomfort, and finding difficult to navigate through the buildings or pathways. This is because of lack of nodes and paths and edges. And the furniture layout also have impact on well-being, as it is used to regulate social interaction and orient them so that their social activity can be generated or encouraged or discouraged based on the usage of the space. And the safety also has impact on well-being, like the accidents, slips, falls, and other injuries related to different safety related issues. The parameters in aesthetical component are color, materials, and finishes. Color can have a lot of impact on visual aspect of a space, but it also has impact on human well-being within a space. It can cause orientation clarity within a space, and it can impact the safety of the persons by helping in signage and effective communication and user awareness within a space. And the materials and finishes uh, can have impact on well-being, like the surfaces and finishes to avoid slip related falls and to avoid glare and Factors like texture, contrast, and slip resistance can greatly contribute in well-being. Non-porous and smooth surfaces in furniture uh, helps in good hygienic conditions. In the social component, there are parameters like privacy, crowding, place attachment. Privacy has a lot of impact on human well-being. It helps to regulate social interaction, and the ability to regulate social interaction means that space has uh, privacy as a major considered parameter, and the crowding means number of people in a space or ability to contain different number of people according to different activities within a space. Its impact on human well-being are psychological distress and heightened uh, mental tension. Place attachment can have a lot of impact on well-being as it deals with positive emotional attachment. So it should be considered, it should not be, emotional attachment should not be negative. Uh, in that case, it means that place attachment is not considered. In the spatial component, there are these parameters: stimulation, coherence, affordances, control, and restorative. Stimulation is the sensory experience in a space. Too much stimulation causes distraction and overload, which interfere with cognitive processes, and it demands a lot of effort and concentration from the brain. So, it should be in a balanced state. Coherence means a theme in a space. To conflicting information from adjacent design elements or abrupt shifts in size and color or texture, it can cause a conflicting mental map of a space, which can heighten the stress. Affordances in a space means cues about using the building features. So, when a user cannot see or perceive the usage of a building feature, it can cause frustration, annoyance, or helplessness, and even hostility. Control means the ability to control the different features within a space, like climatic controls or lighting controls, or uh, using different features of the building to help comfort the individual needs. Insufficient control could cause helplessness or uncontrollable stimulus like noise or external factors can greatly affect a person inside a space. Restorative parameter means the ability of a space to buffer an individual within a space from the daily stresses. So it is the ability of a space for a therapeutic treatment. So uh, this is a uh, this is a quality of a space that helps individual to um to regrow or to forget the daily stress and heal his inner self. Theory of human needs, as per Maslow, depicts that there are uh, human needs in the pyramid shape. First, the basic needs are to be fulfilled in order to fulfill the higher needs. But the recent theories of human needs suggest that higher needs also can be fulfilled, even that the basic needs are not fulfilled. Uh, in this diagram and side by side comparison, uh, we can see that physical and psychological and social needs uh, of a person are also related with the spatial parameters. So these are the parameters that are overlapped within the physical and psychological and social needs. Some parameters overlap and some don't, and some of the parameters overlap all of the three. So the human needs are also dependent on this spatial quality. The case studies from the competitions and individual projects and mass-produced products are selected as per these limitations or criteria. These are from post-disaster design projects from different sources like competitions, design firms, mass-produced products located anywhere within the last 10 years, either prefabricated, incremental, or self-built. It can be emergency shelters, temporary and semi-permanent, and it could hold 2 to 6 people inside. And arrangement can be modular or standalone on a specific context. And the intended crisis could be any crisis or conflict that results in mass displacement of people. So out of these 6 case studies mentioned here, only 2 of them are made part of this presentation due to time constraint. These are the case studies selected as per the criteria and limitations. Number 1 is Building for Humanity Design Competition 2019 by an NGO, Building for Humanity in Portugal. The intended disaster for this competition was civil war in Syria and the resulting influx of Syrian refugees along the Turkish eastern border. The second case study is Emergency Housing Mexico. It is also a competition in 2019 by an NGO called Teco Mexico, and its intended disaster was homelessness in Mexico after floods. The third case study is Fold and Float in 2018, designed by Assoc, a design firm based in Istanbul. This project was also exhibited in Istanbul Design Biennale in 2018. The intended disaster for this project was a possible Istanbul earthquake in Turkey. The fourth one is Villa Verde Housing 2010, designed by renowned architect Alejandro Aravena, based in Chile. Its intended disaster was internal displacement in Chile as a result of earthquake and tsunami. The fifth case study is Hex House 2016, designed by an organization called Architects for Society, based in USA. Its intended disaster was storms and hurricanes. Number 6 case study is Cortex Shelter 2019, designed by Cutwork Design Studio based in Netherlands. Its intended disaster was generic and its use was also uh, intended worldwide. Case study 1 is Building for Humanity Design Competition 2019, and its location was Hatay, eastern province of Turkey, and it is prefabricated design with participatory approach, and its typology is temporary and semi-permanent. Occupancy is 2 to 6 persons, and its arrangement is modular, and its uh, intended crisis was Syrian civil war. The first prize was given to Elif Arpa. This project was obtained directly from the competition organizers. In this design, the materiality and sustainability was greatly considered, and the structure is steel with plywood sandwich panels used as walls with thermal insulation and ability to control the internal climate, and using renewable energy sources, conserving rainwater, all of the features that are essential for sustainability of a building. The layouts of the interior spaces are showing us various groups and their sensitivity to their needs. The voids in between the spaces are providing enough daylight and ventilation to the inside of the spaces. This is the technical component assessment. Lighting is well considered because of the open spaces and voids and good placement of windows. Thermal comfort is also well considered as the radiant heating system is mentioned in the visuals, and sheep wool is also used in sandwich panels for thermal insulation. Air quality is well considered because of large adequate windows and voids. Noise control is considered partially. Use of insulated panels as partition walls may help reduce the noise, but it is not clearly mentioned as a strategy. In the functional component, we can see that space planning is well considered because of the sensitivity to different groups in the planning stage. So it caters a lot of groups, including families, elder people, and community groups. But accessibility is not indicated. So the physically challenged people could find it difficult to access the spaces as the ramp is not uh, mentioned or shown in the visuals, and elevator is also missing. Wayfinding is considered partially because of the monotonous and similar kind of experience in the huge area of residential part that lacks visual markers and nodes. Additional wayfinding assistance may be required. Furniture layout is well considered in this case study as the compact furniture fulfilling the individual needs are uh, designed and carefully considered. Safety is considered partially because of the raised ground level. There is no protection for physically challenged people and elder people and children, and it could be equipped with handrails for fall prevention. In aesthetical component, color is considered partially as the most of the color used is brown color derivatives, and the metal frame. More colors could be used, or it could be used in more random order to create a different identity within the residential module that helps in better mental mapping in the individuals. Materials and finishes are considered well as most of the materials are sourced naturally with the sustainability in mind. In the social component, privacy is considered very well as the layout of spaces indicates that private spaces, sleeping spaces are planned deep in the modules. Crowding is also considered very well. Use of compact furniture and comfortable aisles and wide spaces provide flexibility for social gatherings and activities. Place attachment is also considered very well as the people here could have a positive emotion with the site and with the spaces around, and it help encourage social interaction and creating memories and place attachment. In the spatial component, stimulation is considered very well. Sensory and experiential stimulation because of the open spaces and voids and sunlight and natural views around the site is provided. Coherence is also considered as all of the uh, organization of the spaces are in a legible manner and strongly depict a theme. There is no indication about the affordances and the cues of how to participate in the building process, and it is very repetitive and it causes conflicting cues about internal navigation and circulation. Control is considered very well. Several indications of climatic and spatial controls are seen in visual representation. Restorative parameter is also considered partially. Some internal spaces with green terraces gives the opportunity to individual for healing experience. Fold and float is also made part of this presentation. It was designed to be emergency accommodation for up to 6 people following an earthquake in Istanbul. Its location is Istanbul, Turkey, and its time is 2018. Its construction is prefabricated and typology is temporary up to 2 years. Occupancy is 2 to 6 people. Family or community shared arrangement is modular, and its intended crisis is possible earthquake and resulting displacement. The site that they selected for the deployment of these floating shelters is the Golden Horn in Istanbul. In these pictures, we can see that the structure is made of two parts: the floating concrete pontoon and the upper steel structure that is folded with the furniture and all the shelves also in the folded type. The compact space within this shelter is planned very creatively, and it's fully functional with all the amenities. The assessment of technical component of this case study reveals that lighting and air quality are well considered because of the two large windows on either side of this shelter. And thermal comfort is considered partially, as the external sheet is not described or not uh, discussed in detail in visuals. It could be uh, used with a thermal insulator, so to provide better insulation. Noise control is not indicated in any textual or visual data. In the functional component, space planning is well considered because of the creative utilization of space within this compact shelter. Accessibility is considered partially, as the floating bridges uh, might be difficult for older people, especially in crowding situations. Wayfinding is considered partially. It might be difficult to find a way without additional wayfinding assistance like numbering. However, coastal references can play a significant role. Furniture layout is considered very well. Compact foldable beds and minimal folded service counters within the modules contributes to the optimal utility of interior space. Safety is considered partially. The terraces and waterfronts could utilize handrails for fall protection, especially for children and elderly. Aesthetical component in this case study is considered very well. The color is well considered and it can create recognizable mental images and looks very clean and bold and uh, very easy to recognize. Materials and finishes are that are selected for this case study are very abundant and easy to use, and it it makes it more durable also. And for this floating structure, all the materials are very appropriate. In the social component, privacy is considered partially because of the lack of separation within the module. Crowding is also considered partially because of the compact nature of the shelter and very tight aisles and circulation spaces. So it is difficult to accommodate more people in public gathering events within the module or around the module. Place attachment is well considered because of the choice of the site. The specific site of Golden Horn with its surrounding coastal landmarks would be anchoring the uh, place and attaching positive emotional uh, uh, viewpoint of the individuals living in or around the shelter. In the spatial component, stimulation coherence are well considered because of the natural views outside and sensory experiences, and all of this depicts a strong theme that makes a sense, and there is no indication about the affordances, like the waterfront edges are not properly designed and docks uh, are very narrow and opens into intersections that could be confusing in terms of its user rights. Control is considered partially, as there are some degree of climatic and spatial controls in form of folded furniture, but there are no arrangement for a separation like privacy needs. Restorative is considered partially. The space offers outside views of water and city landscape and is quite inviting to most of the nature elements at site, but the absence of private and uninterrupted spaces might restrict individuals. After careful assessment of all of these 6 case studies, according to these parameters, their sum of the consideration scores are compiled in this table. Based on the sum of the consideration scores of each parameter, we can establish a ratio of consideration, and so we can see that which parameters are considered well and which parameters are not considered very well or weakly considered. So all of these parameters are grouped and divided into these 3 categories. First group is strongly considered, second group is averagely considered, third group is weakly considered. So the strongly considered parameters are usually those which are also a part of conventional architectural approach. But the second group and third group parameters that are not considered strongly are the ones that mostly affect mental well-being of the individuals in a space. And these parameters are safety, privacy, place attachment, stimulation and control, noise, restorative, accessibility, affordances, and wayfinding. Common perception about interior professionals portray them as mere decorators or someone who is only interested in aesthetics, as Chennai describes in 2007. So, the right approach to post disaster reconstruction or rehabilitation is by multidisciplinary approach, assuring the quality of space in addition to structural quality, and by involving interior professionals as team partners. Defining the quality of space beyond aesthetics with focus on human well-being is important, as these definitions are useful in analyzing our environments and can also be used in improving our design approach. The taxonomy of parameters could also be further improved by collecting more data with the participation of environmental psychologists and field studies. So we can improve the interior space quality parameters, and at the same time we can use those interior space quality parameters to improve our design approach. So uh, it is very important that these interior space quality parameters are to be studied as and integrated as a design process. So because of these space quality parameters, we can assess interior space quality, we can improve space quality in while designing spaces and considering well-being of the inhabitants, and as universal design parameters, uh, we can compile a set of guidelines and for uh, for assuring the well-being of inhabitants in a space, both biologically and mentally and socially. So this is the these are the references that were studied. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please?